Hey, John, thanks for using Racers360. Appreciate you being part of the community here. Great lap. You're actually driving really, really strong. One of the better laps that we've seen around Watkins Glen. Definitely a few things here and there we can work on. You're so close here to breaking through those 206s, so I know we can get you down to the 205s. Hopefully even so high 204s. I like to be a little optimistic here. So let's go ahead and get right into it. The first thing I want to talk about is entry speed into turn one. So what I want to do is I typically kind of put them on mute because sometimes the volume can be a bit strange. But what I want to do, turn the volume up. I'm going to let it play full speed, and then we'll go back through it and talk about what I'm seeing. So here we go, volume up. So what I'm looking at here, and this is the first time I've seen this, I think we have too much entry speed. You're starting to try to apply the throttle at the right point, but then you have to come off of it, get back on it, get off of it, and then get back on it again. And that really causes us to lose all the way up the S's. It's really important to get a good exit here. And traditionally, what ends up happening is that makes people overslow, where we actually nice brake zone and good amount of entry speed. So turn the volume off. Let's go back one time by full speed. Let's see where we're braking. We're braking right here. It's a good spot. I like it. We're starting to trail off. Nice turning point. So ideally, where we want to get to throttle is, let me just get my drawing tool going here, is I'm looking to apply throttle right here, the widest or the furthest out part of the apex. And I really want to be able to get pretty aggressive to throttle and be full throttle not long after that. So if we go a little bit here frame by frame, let's take a look and see where we are getting to throttle and where we're getting to full throttle. So right here, we're starting to apply throttle. It's a pretty good spot. The only note for me here, now watching it in slow motion, we can pick up a little bit more, is I think we are picking it up just a little too early here. We're maybe just a little too impatient, and that could cause that understeer into the oversteer we see on exit. You see that you're struggling to get to full power. If we are not patient enough on initial throttle, we can take the weight off the front nose. We can pick this understeer up, and that won't allow us to get our hands straight or open our hands as we like on exit. So this is where I'd like to see the initial throttle come. And what we can see here is the number one thing that I always look for is I want to always, as I'm starting to apply throttle, be able to open our hands. So we can see, watch your hands right now, that as we apply throttle, you can see we're actually turning more. So it doesn't look very significant. It's even hard to tell this at full speed. But that little bit can really cause what we're going to see here on exit, which is where we're not able to get back to full throttle. So what I would say is keep the entry speed up, keep the brake zone that deep. Just try to delay that initial throttle ever so slightly. So right now, I'm going pretty aggressive to throttle, and so are you. Look, we're at pretty aggressive throttle. But what I see now is if you're looking at that throttle, as I go forward, see how we're starting to reduce the throttle. That's something we never want to see. I don't know if you're familiar with data, but I like to coach different ways, so hopefully it gives you more ways for it to click. If we were to look at a graph of what the best throttle position should be, this isn't exactly the straightest lines we've just driven here, drawn here. So let me try that one more time. It's terrible. Hold on 1 second here. Hopefully I can get this a little bit straighter. Still not great. So let's say this bottom line here is 0% throttle. Up the top's 100% throttle. What I would say your throttle right now would look something along these lines like this. And what I'd much rather see is something that's a lot closer to this. So you can see what I'm trying to show you is you're picking up the initial throttle just ever so slightly before me. You're trying to commit up to full throttle here, but then you have to get out of it and then commit back to full throttle much later. And that's something we never want to see. Like, you always want to see this progressive linear line going from 0% throttle to 100% throttle. So I think delaying that initial throttle will really help you do that. And then we can see we're off of it, then getting back on. And you can see we kind of just struggle. I can see you're fighting the car just a little bit. You use all the road. That's really great. So I think that's primarily down to just that initial throttle coming too early and a little bit too much entry speed. So let's try to back that up just a little bit, be more patient, focus on the exit. Through the S's, you look fantastic. This looks great. Good entry speed, you're full throttle, nice line. you lift here. Only note for me, very, very, very small thing would be, I think we turn in slightly too early back to the left and see a lift up there. So ideally, you're going to see we're going to start heading in that direction right now. I'd like to save the turn in until right at the end of this curve. Let me actually draw an arrow rather than that. Right at the end of this curve right here is where I'd really like to see a turn in. It's going to be ever so slightly, we let it drift that way before we get there. You can see we're already starting to head that direction. You're not quite turning to the left yet, but you're letting it be open. I would just say try to keep it right and then turn a little bit harder, a little bit later, and that'll set you up at a slightly different angle right now. You'll be positioned just ever so slightly more to the left, and hopefully that'll give you more confidence to keep it flat. So the car angle will be, and I'm going to exaggerate this a little bit, more looking this way, where we're kind of looking maybe a little bit more this way. So just a slight different angle, that later turn in there can help hopefully give you the confidence to be full speed here. And do a good job opening the car up, letting it be free there. So just keep working on trying to bring more speed up over that. But the line looks pretty close. To the bus stop, great improvement. We're looking really strong here. So let's see, where we're braking, right here. I think we can continue to work up this brake zone. I think we can get inside that 5-board ever so slightly, or maybe right to the 5-board. And then let's take a look here. Nice job right here. I think that was great. Using just a little bit of this curb. You know, I like to try to avoid or maybe just touch the second curb. So let's take a look back here. Maybe we can find something on why we're getting pushed out there. So to me, we're using all of this curb right here. So I think that looks really good. I would take that back. I think using this a little bit of the second curve actually looks fine to me. I think your line looks really good through the first curve. I would say let's try to work on maybe bringing up that brake zone just ever so slightly. Maybe keep the peak brake pressure a little bit longer to help you do that. And then let's take a look on exit. So let's see here. I saw you fight the car just ever so slightly here. Go back a little bit. Watch it here, full speed. Nice, 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 nice. So right here, I think you are really trying to get down and hit this third curve. I worry less about that, and I worry more about opening my hand. So right now, you can see we still have a decent amount of wheel turning to the left, where if you look at it, we could be pretty much have our hands straight at this point already. So all I would say is I'd like to see you try to open up your hands a little bit earlier. So let's go back just ever so slightly. So I think that'll help you fight the car a little bit less and just be a little bit smoother through the section. So I think we can just ever so slightly open our hands. But this is looking really good here. Down into the carousel, I think we are maybe ever so slightly, again, overslowing. It's pretty heavy brake there. It's hard to see how hard you are braking. If it's just the lightest of touches on the brake, I think we're fine. But I think we could bring just a little bit more entry speed in here. And then for me, the main thing is actually on the exit. So it's a little hard to tell, but what I want to point out here, and what my goal is as a driver, if you see right here, that's the start of the exit curve. I really want to be opening my hands to get my left side wheels out there at the start of the curve. So I open my hands a lot earlier. And what that does is allows me to get either to full throttle earlier, or even bring in more entry speed and still get to full throttle at the same point, opening the radius of the corner. So let's go forward a little bit and see where do we get out to this exit curve. So we get out here about here. So you can see it's almost to the end of the exit curve even. We're about midway. So I'd like to see you opening your hands earlier, getting out to that exit curve earlier. So I would be about a car width wider than you right now. Opens the radius up. So really, as I'm driving through this corner, the carousel, you know, it's kind of blind through it all. You're trying to look almost through the corner. What I'm trying to do, and we're not going to see it early enough because the seat's in the way here on the right side, but I'm looking through, and I'm as early as I can pick out, and I've already seen it here, that exit curve, I'm trying to open my hands and let the car be free and come out to the pretty much the start of that exit curve. That's my goal. I think that'll allow you to pick up that full throttle earlier. If you look down over here, you can see we're only at partial throttle, about half throttle. I think you can be committing to full throttle earlier, picking your eyes up, letting the car be free, and that'll allow you to commit earlier here. But overall, we're looking good. That's just a very small change. This next corner down into the boot, I think this is awesome. Your line's great. Your throttle point's great. Let's see it one time by full speed. Coming off the brakes here, letting it be free. Committing to throttle about here. I like it. I'd be full throttle here. You're full throttle, opening the hands. Like, that's awesome. Keep that up because you are doing a great job there. So this next corner here, the toe of the boot, it's the only place I kind of struggled with the passenger seat, trying to get an idea of where you are in the corner. And what it seems like to me, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, it's just hard to see. It looks like we're kind of driving it on the old line. It almost looks like if you've driven here when it used to have the concrete patch, I don't know if you have driven there, but we have to kind of go inside the concrete patch, have an early turn in, and that's where the grip was. It looks like you're still doing the same line, and that means we're apexing too early, and then we're fighting the car out on exit. So let's watch it one time by full speed, and I'll come back through it. So brake zone here, braking in. So it's hard to see, but what I noticed is it looks like we're kind of near the apex all the way through there, and then we really fight the car here on exit. So it's a little bit hard to tell, but if that's the case, what I would like to see is more of a diamond. So at this point, it looks like to me, I'm going to attempt to draw this as best as I can. We kind of turn in, and this is going to be exaggerated. I know we're not apexing quite this early, but we kind of do something like that. I would rather see you maybe even potentially brake slightly deeper and have a straighter line go past it. Now, obviously, I know I'm driving in the grass here, so it's just exaggeration so you can see the difference in lines, and kind of come back towards it. And what it allows you to do is, A, allows you to bring in a lot more entry speed. You might have a slightly less minimum speed right in the middle part of that diamond. And then as you commit the throttle, you'll be able to open your hands. So you won't fight that exit oversteer that you've got, a throttle on oversteer. So if that's what you're doing, I apologize, it's hard to tell, but that's what I would rather see here. So I think we can brake slightly deeper. At this point, I almost want to turn in a little bit earlier than you as well and just kind of aim up the hill. So at this point, I want to be almost aiming my way up the hill a little bit more this way. And it seems like you've got more of a traditional line that does something like this. So it's not a perfect diamond, but I'm trying to almost go past that first apex and then come back around to hit almost a second apex. I don't get my right side tire down to that apex curve here on the start, but that's kind of the mentality that I've got towards it and allows me to bring in more entry speed. So seems like we've turned in here. We apex slightly too early, right around here. You can see there's the apex cone. So I would almost rather be coming at it with a different angle. So if you go out just a little bit further on the entry, you're kind of coming back, and you're kind of, let's say, car angle something like this. And it's just a very small difference, but I would be a little bit more like this at this point. And that's what that allows me to do. And you won't be fighting the car as much on exit. I can see your hands having to fight just a little bit here to put down the power. So in your car is a higher horsepower car. I worry less about trying to roll minimum speeds. And I almost want to do more of a point and shoot technique to where I can brake slightly later, bring in more entry speed, have a slower minimum speed in the middle of the corner, but then be able to get a better exit. So for a very small amount of time, I will be slower, but then I'm faster in and faster out. And that's my mentality, especially when driving a kind of a higher horsepower or less of a momentum car. On exit here, use all of the road. That looks beautiful. Keep that up for sure. Go here. Let's take a look. We are braking just before the 200 board. See where our initial throttle comes. Right here, perfect to me. You use as much of the road here on exit as you can. I would be every little bit I can use. If you can even use like an extra half car width out here, use it, because that just allows you to roll more entry speed and get the throttle earlier. But for me here, the line looks good. The brake point looks pretty good. And the throttle spot looks good. So I think we're good here. Take a look here in the next corner coming out of the boot. What I would say here is it looks slightly similar to me as it does at the toe of the boot. It looks like you're driving the line of what was necessary when there was some concrete there, which was a very early turn-in. Now that it's repaved, and if you weren't there before the concrete, it just kind of going off what I see. And so if that's not the case, then we're just turning in too early. But that used to be the line here. So I'd like to see a slightly later turn-in, slightly later apex, and there's a ton of grip here now, so we can actually roll that and roll pretty good speed. So I would turn about a car length later than where you are now, just before the crest of the hill is where I'm starting to turn in. So the crest of the hill we can see is just above this green line, just where that white car is just going over right now. I'll wait about an extra full car length later than you for my initial turn-in. And we go through here. So I'm a little bit lighter. I'm going to be a little bit wider than you at this point, a little bit wider. And now I'm apexing about here. But what happens is because I've turned in a little bit later, again, the car angle is different. My car angle will be a little bit more this way, where you're kind of a little bit more looking, let me undo those red lines. You're looking a little bit more this way. So it just helps that car angle. And then let me take a look at where we're getting the throttle here. There's the throttle point. Yep. Pretty good to full throttle. You can see we have a small little lift there. And this doesn't, if you look down at the throttle for me, what I want to show you, it doesn't look like much, but it does actually add time. So we're full throttle, full throttle, full throttle. You can see that little lift back to full throttle again. You'll be shocked at how much that adds up to. Those little lifts after you've committed to full throttle are bigger chunks of time than I can ever believe. That's probably 2/10 there down to turn 10 at least. So really what I want to see is maybe delaying that initial throttle, having the different angle of the car as you start to hit the apex, so we'll open those hands a little bit earlier, and then hopefully we can avoid those small little lifts we see there. So let's just go back one time by through. So we're slightly later apex, then we can start unwinding the wheel earlier and getting out to this exit curve even a little bit earlier, and that'll really help you there. But that's just, again, a small change. So I know here into turn 10, we are overtaking a car, so it kind of disrupts our rhythm. The number one thing I see here is we don't use all the road on exit. I'd like to see us at least get our right side tires out onto this exit curve. You know, I almost have half my car and almost straddle these curbs a little bit. I think we could try to do that. Now, I know your rhythm maybe was thrown off a little bit, but just make sure we're using all of the road. Go back through here. So yeah, it's hard to tell anything on entry. Apex point, good, throttle, throttle, throttle. Open those hands. Just be maybe about a half car width wider. I think that you can try that. So into the final corner, I think we're turning too late into it. So let's watch it one time by full speed, and then we'll break it apart. So I know that they've got that turning cone, and that's kind of what you're using as your reference. I think it's just too late. So the one thing about this last corner is it's cambered. When it's cambered, you really want to turn it early so you can almost drop down in there and let the camber catch the car and go. When you turn it too late, you kind of fall into it, and it's not a catching motion. So here, I would want to be turning in right here. So about 2 car lengths earlier, and that is going to allow me to roll a lot more entry speed. Apex a little bit earlier, so I actually have less of an angle in the car right now. So if, let's say, you're kind of very much this way, I would have a little bit less of an angle, maybe something like this way. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to be getting out to this exit curve earlier. So I would be out there probably already, and about a half car width wider. So you only really get out to the exit curve really here at the end of the exit curve. I think we could be out here by now. And you can see we're still turning, where I would probably have my hands straight and be driving in a straight line already down this front straightaway. So turning in earlier into the banking, let it catch the car, go, 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 open those hands, get out to the exit curve earlier. That'll really help you. So that's been our kind of analysis. So you're driving around here. You're driving at a really high level. It's small little things here. but they're going to add up over time. So we'll upload this Dropbox, shoot it over to you, and can't wait to hear your feedback, hear your thoughts, and hopefully we can answer some of your questions. So thanks for using Racers360, and hopefully we'll see you at the track soon.